Okay, I'm here at Worcester Racecourse with John Morris, author, writer and professional backer. On the 26th year of your book, as far as, if I'm correct there, John?
Yeah, 26 years I've been writing jumping prospects. It's been a labour of love at times, but I started off, I think it was 1992, and the first book I wrote, it was a success winners wise, but I got slated by the Racing Post because the thing wasn't proved properly. So I learned a lesson on that one. The next one, again, wasn't perfect, but the winners were there. And then I went to magazines, 6 magazines I managed to complete, but unfortunately the distribution company who was in charge of the promotion and selling of the magazine went bust, costing me over £16,000 in lost revenue, and that would have scared anybody off in business. Myself, I was a single parent with 2 daughters at the time, and it was a bit daunting, but you know, I'm never one to shy away from a battle. I've been battling the bookies all my life, I've been battling personal circumstances all my life, and it took me a little bit of time to recover, but I managed to get into things. Prior to that, just going back to my childhood in Liverpool, when I was at school I used to like a bet, and I would stand outside betting shops in Liverpool and I'd ask fellas to put the bets on for me. Now some of them won and the fellas never gave me the money, which was a bit of a setback as well at times. But as I got older, I must have been about 14 when I first ventured into a betting shop. Now there was no gambling commission at the time, and it was an experience. Walking into them places at that time compared to what they are now were dens of iniquity, but they were full of characters, and it was my apprenticeship in a way, because I spoke to younger guys, probably a little bit older than myself, in their 20s, but also the old stagers who probably remembered the runners, the time when they had runners on a corner in Scotty Road and places like that in Liverpool. It was hard going at times, but really enjoyed it. And I don't think younger punters realise how lucky they are, because in those days there were no pictures in betting shops. They were smoke filled. I have chest infections now, probably due to my time in the betting shops, but I enjoyed every moment of it. You know, you learn things. Now one thing they had in the betting shops them days, this is what I was coming round to, was the fact that they had the blower. Now Excel would relay a commentary from the race course, and at times the commentary in the closing stages would be longer than the race, particularly in the flats. It was the final furlong, and whoever was doing the commentary would like spin it out for as long as he possibly could to make, you know, the race sound really exciting. Now that went on for a number of years, but I think it was 1986 when SIS was born, and then that just transformed everything, because there were places, race courses, that had a mystique about them because they were never on terrestrial television. Places like Windsor, Fontwell the figure of 8, you know, unless you'd been there you didn't know what it was like. And all of a sudden SIS burst onto the scene and pictures came along. Betting shops changed forever, because don't forget as well, you had the board markers in betting shops, and those lads who marked the board had my admiration, because they didn't make mistakes, they got everything right, they remembered to write the favourites down, the boards were marked up brilliantly. It was absolutely fantastic. But when SIS came in and you had the screens as well relaying the prices, everything started to change. Whether or not it was for the better, I'm not sure, but I've got fond memories of those days with the Excel, but even fonder memories of what went on when the racing was just starting to be covered by the SIS on the televisions. That was great. My own history of going racing myself, I remember going with an uncle of mine who passed away a number of years ago, and he took me to Aintree, my local course. I only live a few miles now from Aintree, and the year I went, I told the teachers in school to be on this horse for the Grand National. I said, it's run twice around the course, it hasn't quite done anything as yet, but it was trained by Toby Balding in 1969. and it was called Highland Wedding. I've been on YouTube and I've had a look at the Highland Wedding race, and what struck me about it was that they said the ground was fast. It wasn't good, it was fast, quick ground. And when the horses went round, they were going, because what happened was the footage of those days was not brilliant, should we say, but the horses themselves were jumping brilliantly. And the first faller, I think, came around about the 4th fence in the race, and by the time when the field got round past the stands, the Aintree stands, and don't forget the old county stand's still there, that's what it was like in them days, it was packed, but the whole of the field virtually was still on its feet and still going round, still jumping brilliantly. By the time when they got down to the open ditch the second time round, down on the way down to Beaches, it spread out a little bit, the field, but they were still going well. And I think he took it up, Highland Wedding, who was a 12-year-old at the time, took it up at the canal turn, just jumping the canal turn, but he was definitely in the lead coming to Valentine's. And he went on and won in convincing style. Now the reason why I tell that story is that Toby Baldwin became an idol of mine at that time, and he later in life was one of the trainers who I interviewed for Jumping Prospects. And when I turned up at Weyhill one day for the first time, I was late and I put my head around the door looking for Toby and didn't recognise him. I just said, looking for Toby Baldwin. And he goes, "You're late, where have you been?" He had a right go at me. I said, "Right, I've got the sandwiches, come on, let's go, we're just retiring back to the cottage." And that interview was supposed to last about an hour and a half. I left there around about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. It was absolutely worth its weight in gold. And when he got his OBE just before he started, he died I should say, he sent me a little note because I'd sent him a congratulatory letter, and he sent one back to me, and I've still got it at home. And a few years later he died, unfortunately, but he had a full life and he was an absolute gentleman. He had a reputation, we all know that, but as a guy who I've met during my time doing Jumping Prospects, he was absolutely brilliant.
Okay, John, you've made your love also a career, but with the writing and the punting. What is your specific approach for anybody watching when it comes to backing horses successfully?
Well, the first thing you've got to do is damage limitation. That's always been my policy. So I do like to cover my bets, particularly if I've got a strongly fancied one and it might be a big price, and I've backed some big price winners in my time, but I do like to cover the bet wherever possible. It's just a case of being patient as well. I've been in betting shops when I was younger, and fellas used to do, on the football they do 20 matches, and the horses they could do 10 on doubles and trebles and all sorts, and they're always looking for the big win with their 10 pence bets, but really you're not really going to get that. Having said that, I think I did a 20 pence yank, it would be about what, 78, something like that, maybe a little bit later, probably 1980, and at the time I was working in St Helens in Liverpool for Triplex, and St Helens in Merseyside, and I put this bet on a Friday afternoon, and the video recorders had just come out, and I got the whites to take the racing for me, and when I got back I watched it, and there was 4 horses in it, obviously would have been a yank, and the first one won, good price, second one won 9-2, third one won, good price, fourth one won, good price. Now you got to remember, in them days I was probably picking up round about £600-700 a month working for another company. The bet alone paid £900, and I went into Liverpool to pick the money up, and I ended up going around 3 of one of the biggest bookmakers in the country's shops trying to get the money out of them during the morning. But that's just the sort of thing that can happen to you when you're young in the game, as I was. But there have been some really interesting horses that I've backed over the years. There was a trainer by me in Lydiate called Mike O'Neill, and he had a number of very good horses at the time, and was responsible for bringing Jimmy Fortune from Ireland to ride for him on the flat. But he also trained over jumps, and Mick Meager, who's now the racing manager for Trevor Hemmings, he was the assistant trainer there, and they trained a horse called Precious Boy, who won the, I think it was the Imperial Cup First time at 16 to 1, and then next time I was 50 to 1. I managed to get the prices for them, for both of them. He'd had a bit of an injury, there was a bit of a gap. I think it was 1991 and 1994 when this horse won. That was one of the biggest thrills I've ever had, because it was locally trained. I used to go down to the gallops during the winter and early spring and watch what was going on down there, stand on the hill. It was only me doing it. And there was a horse being readied for Chester. I think it was called, off the top of my head, Admiralty Way. Now, this ran at Chester over 7 furlongs, I think it was. No, it was further. It was 1.25 mile. Pretty saying it was something like that anyhow. And it was on Channel 4. In the morning, I'd gone round and got the 33 to 1 for it that was knocking around in a few different shops. I had, for me, a fairly big bet at the time. And I always remember, I think it was Rawley Gilbert on Channel 4 who was commentating. And they came round into the home straight, and his famous quote, which really sticks in my mind, is, "This is supposed to be a handicap." The horse was 18 lengths clear, something like that, going into the final furlong, and it romped home. Now, the sequel to that race was that earlier, the week before, I'd actually had somebody crash into the side of the car, and I couldn't get out of the driver's side. I used to have to clamber over into the passenger side and get out of the car. And you won't guess what happened that evening when I got out in the middle of town. The betting slips fell out of my pocket, and they were worth about £8,000, maybe more. So I was absolutely mortified, but fortunately I managed to get to two of the shops that had the biggest proportion of the bets, and the girls there said they would never have paid anybody else out other than me. But it took me a week to get the money, because they had to send the film away to get processed and then everything checked, and the money was ready for me. But that was a nice feeling, that one. I really enjoyed that. Punting wise, over the years, another horse in that yard that went in was Joveworth for 50 to 1 for the Air Gold Cup. I remember watching that on a Saturday morning, doing its work, going through its paces about a week before it was due to run in the Air Gold Cup, which I think at that time used to be run on a Friday. And it romped it, quite frankly. You could have called it the winner at halfway, as far as I was concerned. Went in 50 to 1 for that. I thought, that's good. Well, they're the positive ones. What about the negatives? And there's been a lot of negatives, believe me. You've got to have really broad shoulders to be in the game as long as I have, without having disappointments. And I've had a lot of disappointments. I'm not going to name them, you know, for any embarrassment, because there were a few that in a way hurt me a lot. But you learn to wipe your mouth, walk away and start again. And that's the problem that a lot of people have. They can't accept losing bets, they can't accept losing runs. So that's one of the things that you've got to remember. As I said, by 1992 I was writing the book. I've formed relationships over the past 26 years with trainers. I've interviewed 125 trainers now, different trainers, throughout those 26 years. Some of them have been in the book since the start, others haven't. It's never plain sailing in this game, but recently I've had an awful lot of success at Cheltenham. I enjoy my racing at Cheltenham and Aintree, and I like to go for value wherever possible. The game's changed a little bit, but I'm hopeful that things will keep going for me.